What a fantastic turnout. Welcome to the 15th annual cricket show and charity evening. Now in the past we've had some pretty fantastic cricket legends coming along to promote their charity and chat to us. We've had Ian Botham, Freddie Flintoff, Jack Russell, Tim Rice, Lord McLaren, but this year we thought we'd have an upgrade. Mark Nicholas makes a difference, the turnout tonight, wherever he goes. 10 years as captain of Hampshire, they were triumphant on so many occasions. 12. I love Wikipedia, don't you? It always puts you in the push. It'll be a poo-pedia. 12, was it? True? Okay. Given to exaggeration. He makes a difference. They've won lots of cups. 4. And as broadcasting, of course, he is ubiquitous. He has pervaded the airways with his mellifluous tones, and he has become respected for his light touch and for his solid statistics. Also,
thank you, darling.
Probably the most triumphant part of this splendid career is that we now have an MCC chairman who is a proper cricketing bod. Now, amongst all the MCC chums, the fellow MCC members that I know, this has been an appointment that we all love, a cricketing chap in charge at last. And already we're feeling the relaxation of the authoritarian regime that's gone before and a certain open-mindedness. It's a good appointment and we welcome you. But probably the most important thing that he's ever done is found a great charity for kids called Chance to Shine. Now the last 3 years we've had our evenings for Chance to Shine, and you've been very generous, and we've raised lots and lots of money, mainly through the auspices of Jack Russell putting up some of his pictures and Charles Rifkin buying so many of them. You're a very generous lot, so thank you, and I hope you carry on tonight, where 10% of the sales is going to Chance to Shine. Now there's a little picture that is already sold that Jack has given totally, and that is already sold, so we're off and running. Now before I put you into that, I'd just like to say thank you to 2 lots of people. The Cricket Society people have come along in great numbers. This is the first time they've come along. I got introduced to the Cricket Society when I went along as Jack's guest to an award that he had recently, and I found them very lively, and since joining, I find it a dynamic society. So anybody who's really interested in cricket should think about joining the Cricket Society. Anybody here from the Cricket Society? Yep. Yay! And thank you also to the artists who have turned out tonight. Nick Newman is here, the Bard of Wisdom, Stallwater Private Eye, and of course he delights us every Sunday with the Sunday Times, Nick Newman's View. Glenn Baxter is here, I think. The great surreal genius is here. Jack Russell, which of course adorns the walls, is here tonight. And we've put in non-cricketing things. We've put in a lot of Maida Vale views. Well, it's near Lords. In order to get his sketching companion along as well, Melissa Scott Miller. Thank you to all the artists. Thank you. And Jack, are you there? Ah, thought you'd gone off to the pub. And thank you for coming. On you go. That's the first ball.
Thank you for those very kind words, Chris. Look, I think I should start really where we are in the present. We're in the company of a cricketer who marched on. It would be impossible to imagine you could have reached greater heights than those performed by Jack Russell behind the stumps. He was Quicksilver. He used to come and stand up to the stumps to medium fast bowlers and terrify the life out of a batsman who even thought of a Johnny Bairstow. That little topple forward and you knew you were gone. He was Quicksilver. He was faster than Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter, or Robert Redford in The Sundance Kid, Bush Cassidy in The Sundance Kid, not as good looking as either, but Quicksilver. and absolutely brilliant. I can't tell you how good his glove work was. And thinking about it, of course, that glove work comes from the hand-eye coordination. And this work comes from the ability with brushstrokes, and that, of course, is the work of the hand and the eye. There are paintings here that are breathtaking in their simplicity, their clarity, their colour, and in some cases their drama and movement. And Jack's own choice is behind that gentleman's head with the glasses there, but the painting of Ranjit, who was the first non-Englishman to represent England. And it's got elements of a very famous photograph, perhaps the most famous and best of all cricket photographs, of Victor Trumper, the great Australian batsman, with the large front foot movement, the quite straight front leg before it bends into the stroke, the high back lift. And if you look closely at it, you can really feel the movement of a batsman. And in that picture, I feel the beauty of cricket within the beauty of art. And I wrote a book a while back, as sort of a memoir of my time in the game, not an autobiography, but I called it A Beautiful Game. And as I was getting ready to get out to Lord's this morning and continue my 24/7 unpaid job, I thought I would indulge. It's quite brave to read stuff from your own book, but I'm going to do it because, I don't know, I felt it was so appropriate to Jack's work and to Chris's invitation. So please bear with me as I indulge. This is the epilogue to the book. Cricket is the most artistic of all games, and to me the most beautiful, hence the title of this book. Cricket is difficult, frustrating and unfair, but the bounty of its rewards is plentiful. Players have a singular power to make or break the game, as does the behaviour of the weather. Matches are sometimes dull, and the amount of time taken in becoming so is a constant source of amazement to those of us who are not wedded to their charms. It is a game of vignettes, which gives it layers, but these layers are not apparent to everyone. The expressions of the participants give it human drama, but this too is subject to understanding. Cricket is celebrated in verse and song and on canvas. Voila. It can be as brutal as it is balletic, as true as it can be false. Those who play it take risks, and in so doing know they may be betrayed. As I have discussed in an earlier chapter, it is surely why the writers and the artists came to the game, to wallow in these contradictions. I find it aesthetically satisfying because it is a game of straight lines, but one that still has a place for awkward angles and rugged edges. As an example, batting is frequently difficult and frustrating, but even the most prosaic of batsmen can give pleasure with a moment of brilliance. It is mainly an instinctive skill and yet relies on method for its excellence. Nothing, not even ballet, could be more graceful than a cover drive by David Gower or an on-drive by VVS Laxman. Batting pleases the eye because it is a thing of straight lines that are subject to angles and dimensions. Each innings is an interpretation. Above all, batting is fragile. 1 minute you have it, the next it's gone. A single ball will undo hours, days, weeks of preparation. For sure, batting, cricket indeed, is not to be trusted. It's played out on the edge of nerves. It examines character, explores personality, and exposes vulnerabilities. A batsman scores 100 one day, a naught. This is wicked, it is unkind, but it is tempting, and it is exhilarating. Raise your bat once, and you will ache to do so again, because the art of batting is a beautiful journey with a beautiful result. So, that's just a little snippet of it. You can buy it for about. So, I was thinking who the best I've seen is. Jack, who is the best you stood behind?
So Vivian Richards.
Viv Richards. If you walk into the pavilion at Lord's, you come in the north door, and hitting you between the eyes is an enormous portrait of Viv Richards. Enormous. And it's just face and neck, and it's breathtaking in its power, in its intimidation, in its fascination. It's an extraordinary example of how a painter can produce something in a man that perhaps even the man doesn't know he has. In Viv's case, he was vulnerable too. And just hidden in corners of that paintings, in those eyes, those intimidatory, glassing eyes, is a hint of vulnerability. It is a brilliant piece of work. In 1993, I think, maybe 1994, my second last year of playing professionally, I saw the greatest innings I'd ever seen on a cricket field at which I was present. And that was played by Viv Richards. He was representing Glamorgan against Hampshire. It was a very flat Southampton pitch, and we set them an easy target because they weren't very good. But they had Viv Richards. I set them 325 in a day. My team, including the great Malcolm Marshall, said to me, "Skip, man, what are you thinking, boy? You gone crazy, man? You gone crazy, man?" I said, "No, we get Viv out, we'll walk it. We win by tea." At tea, Glamorgan were 124 for 7. And Viv was 22 not out. He'd come in at number 5 and he'd blocked to try to save the game, which is not a Viv thing to do at all. And I thought, this is very odd, but we were all happy at tea. We came out after tea full of confidence, looking to knock the other 3 over, not strong at the back of the order. People like Colin Metson, Steve Barwick, Steve Watkin, the seamer. First ball after tea, Tim Tremlett, a good seamer, was bowling at Viv. Viv went, and he followed through. And he over the side screen, over the road, and into the garden of the newly built houses behind the old ground, the Northlands Road ground, if any of you went there. With 1 over of the match left, Glamorgan were 8 down. They needed 14 to win, and Viv Richards was 160 not out. It was an astonishing array of stroke play, an astonishing example of stealing the strike. And the greatest fast bowler in the world, perhaps of all time, was going to bowl at him for the last over of the match. So I said to Malcolm Marshall, we spread the field, we give Viv a single, you bowl at Metson and Barwick, we win the game with the ball to spare. So we spread the field, and the first ball was a length ball at off stump, and Viv backed away, and he hit it on the up through extra cover so fast that Robin Smith, who was a sprinter for South Africa in his youth, and Paul Terry, the equal best fielder in the country, didn't have a chance of meeting the ball as it hit the boundary board with a clatter like you simply can't believe. Okay, so 10 to win, 5 balls remaining. Mako, we give Viv a single. You bowl at Metson and Barwick, we win, hopefully. He ran in, did Malcolm Marshall, and he bounced it. Bouncer at Viv Richards. And he hit it over the flats. I kid you not, we never, ever found the ball. This isn't going well, Mako. Now, 4 to win. 4 balls remaining. Mako, volley my Yorker, will you? Christ almighty, man, volley my Yorker. Full ball, attempted Yorker, and he went woof, like this. And I was at long on. And I wasn't the swiftest. Woof, like this. And off I set, and I threw myself feebly, unathletically, and the ball slipped under me and over the boundary rope. Viv 174 not out. Glamorgan win by 2 wickets, and I look up from the dirt, and Viv is sprinting towards me. The great man, Viv Richards, the great man. He gets to me, he throws his bat on the ground, he takes his glove off, he puts his hand out, I look up, I stand up, I shake it, he says, "Great declaration." He said, "Let's go and have a beer." And we went and drank beers. Viv Richards, the greatest player that either of us have seen on the field of play. As much for his intimidation, of course, as much, I think, for his Probably, actually, his ability to thrill in an entertainment sense. I think there are certain players, when they walk to the crease, you really do feel excited by them. You know, there's a line I've read about him once, him and Ian Botham actually, they clear the bars. In other words, if there's a queue at the bar, when they're walking, everybody rushes back to their seat. So one of the things that Jack and I would say has been the greatest privilege of our lives is the people that we've played with and the experiences that we've had because of playing with those people. So those that play with Jack found it a remarkable experience to play with the man who would go on an England cricket tour for some 3 months in the subcontinent with a whole suitcase of baked beans. And that was all he would eat for the whole tour. Is that a fair call, Jack?
Correct.
Correct. So you can imagine the farting, can't you? I mean, how dreadful that must have been. But Jack was idiosyncratic, a bit like Alan Knott before him. He wore a little sort of bucket hat thing, toweling. He had his gloves all taped up. He had a sense of individualism, personality, and of course extraordinary flair that few cricketers have had. He is one of England's very greatest cricketers. When I first saw him, I remember saying to him, or rather he reminded me, that I said, "You'll play for England within a year." And he did. He was so good, it was sort of ridiculous actually, to be honest. So that's my biggest thrill, the people I've met, the people I've played with, the experiences I've had. I met Chris a few years ago at another event here, and I've seen him with Jeffrey Archer at various charity auctions over the years. And on the subject of charity, he mentioned Chance to Shine. Perhaps the thing I'm most proud of in my cricketing life is coming up with Chance to Shine and then joining up with Mervyn King as we developed the possibility, the pilot, and then the practicality and reality. And here we are 20 years on, having raised a mere 59 million pounds. And brought cricket to more than 7 million children who wouldn't have otherwise have played it. It now costs us a staggering £7 million a year to run our programmes all around the country. We thought we had more money from the government when Rishi Sunak very shrewdly did a little internal deal and was able to give the game 35 million, of which Chance to Shine were going to receive 10. And then the current government decided to withhold that money, and we haven't seen it since, which is frustrating, to say the very least. But pride comes before the fall, they say. There's no danger of a fall for Chance to Shine. We continue to put 88p in the pound back into the project that continues to delight young people, bring them to play a game that we all love, and experience the extraordinary character development opportunities through leadership, through team building, and through the joy of success. The thing about cricket is it doesn't matter what size or shape or creed or colour or talent you are. If, when the opposition need 2 to win, and the winning shot is supposedly struck, and you are the fielder who sticks out a hand, and the ball stays in it, and you win the game with your catch, whatever your talent, wherever you're from, your team will run to you and hug you and applaud you, and the thrill of that will live with you in the days to come. Cricket is uniquely able to fulfill the joy of anybody who has a crack at playing it. So I'm enormously lucky to have had the life in the game that I've had. I'm now enormously lucky to have a position that has some responsibility and some real meaning, and a chance to move on. I think a club that has so much potential but has tended to get stuck in the mud over issues that really needn't have you stuck in the mud. So there's lots to look forward to after a life in which I've been extraordinarily lucky. I'm lucky to be here tonight. I'm lucky that Chance to Shine is represented in a return of some sort after Jack's brilliant work. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that so many of you have come along to have a listen and to have a long and hard look. Thank you very much.
I said that Mark makes a difference to anything that he does, and this evening he's really enhanced our enjoyment. So thank you very much, Mark. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 people would like to ask a question. Yes? Anybody? Yes?
Mark, we met about 30 years ago in Singapore at the international sixes competition run by a great friend of mine, Jeff Allen, and you told me a story of your exploits playing the other games, golf, and you'd had a round with one Ian Botham, and on the particular occasion, I believe you won, and Boss wrote a check out. I may have the figure wrong, but I have a memory of £117.53. And you turned around and you said, I've never cashed it. I've put it up on my wall as proof that I won. Do you still have that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it was £175, not £117, and beating both of them is the greatest joy, and still is. There was a great story, well, not a great story, a nice story came out of that Singapore trip. It was a sixes tournament. Do you remember, sir? And I was captaining an England side in a sixes tournament, six-a-side tournament in Singapore on a very small ground, dead centre of town. I think at the Singapore Club. I think that's right.
It's a cricket club, yeah.
Cricket club, yeah. And it's a very narrow ground. So, I mean, honestly, if they played with today's bats, goodness knows the sixes it would have been hit. But we were playing Sri Lanka in the final. And they opened with Sanath Jayasuriya and Ramesh Kalawitana. And batting at number 4 was, batting at number 4 was Aravinda de Silva, who at the time was, along with Tendulkar and Lara, probably the best player in the world. And Sanath Jayasuriya retired. You had to retire if you got to 35. And Sanath Jayasuriya retired after 6 balls. And I said to the bowler, Phil Newport, I said, Phil, this is a very bad news move. He said, why is that? I said, because we've now got Aravinda de Silva coming in. He said, Christ, I'd much rather bowl Aravinda de Silva than Sanath Jayasuriya. So we knocked them over. We took 4 wickets after that, quickly, bang, bang, the ball swung around. What we didn't know was he could come back in. So he came back in and he hit the next 3 balls for 6s. 9 consecutive 6s off the so-called England team. We lost the final by about 100, I think. We lost by miles. But thank you for reminding me of that. And yes, I've still got the cheque and I remind both of them about it regularly.
Thank you, Mark.
Anybody else? The bar is still open. Ah, yes.
I'm from Portsmouth. It's great to see.
You're from where?
Portsmouth.
Yep.
And it's great to see United Services ground.
Yep.
That Jack's painting. And I've seen his paintings at Cheltenham, and I think it's so important to play at the outgrounds. I can only speak from a Portsmouth perspective. We've lost a whole generation of kids.
Yeah. The question.
It's not easy if you've got a dad can't take you to the utility.
Yeah, there's a very good question. The gentleman is saying that there's. He's from Portsmouth and he watches cricket at United Services ground, and there's also a picture of Cheltenham, which is another good example of an outground used by a county. In fact, it's still a very important part of Gloucestershire cricket at the Cheltenham weekend. In fact, I was talking to a lead figure at Gloucester the other day and they want to play more cricket at Cheltenham. They're looking to try to make that a fortnight. And it's a real loss that the counties don't play at the outgrounds. Well, some play some matches. But Essex, for example, used to play at 4 different outgrounds, Yorkshire at 5. But it doesn't happen now because of costs. It's expensive, so they're all centralising and playing or developing their own. So Hampshire developed the Aegeus Bowl, as it was called, and is now called the Utility Bowl. How unpleasant a name is that? But it's a business that have pumped money into the club. So it's all about money and saving. You're doing your best to save first-class cricket from costing so much money that people begin to question it even further than they do now, and they sure question it enough. So I get it, but I'm as sad as you are. And by the way, the players loved it. We loved playing at Portsmouth. That had real bounce and pace. That was fun, particularly if you had Marshall. And we played at Bournemouth and we played at Basingstoke. They were the other grounds that we played at. Jeff Thompson came down the hill at Basingstoke and hit me in the near the midriff. And I hit the deck in screaming agony and was stretchered from the field with Mike really saying, it's perfectly apparent your mother was an actress. If you're hit in that area by Jeff Thompson, full toss it was too. He'd be lucky to still be alive. Any other questions? No? Yes, sir. Yeah, go for it.
I remember 2005 like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And the Channel 4 commentary and just the whole summer and the effect that it had on the nation. And that was the last time that Test cricket was on terrestrial TV. The current team are so entertaining, whatever you think of some of the tactics that they employ every now and again. How can we make sure that the next generation realise that and cherish Test cricket?
Okay, so the question is, this gentleman remembers 2005, that glorious Ashes summer, which incidentally is when Chance to Shine, hello Charles, which incidentally is when Chance to Shine was launched on May the 7th in 2005, and the Ashes began soon after. And it was the greatest series that I've ever seen, and it was on Channel 4, so free-to-air TV. And the question is, how can we ensure young people get the chance to see Test match cricket in the numbers that they did then? And the answer is we can't. Satellite television is paying the big bucks. The paywall is unbreakable, really. I mean, the only chance, I suppose, is streamers buying, and then you might be able to buy a smaller piece of the action. You might choose to watch a Test match for a tenner or whatever. You know, you can watch a boxing match, can't you? But I'm afraid that with the outgoings now to justify the expenses of the international team, high players' wages in the modern era to fight off the threat from franchise leagues, I think it's very unlikely you'll ever see Test cricket in any serious way back on terrestrial television, sadly. But here to 2005, the greatest series. Whatever they say about 81 was more about Botham's extraordinary act with Bob Willis at Headingley and then the bombardment of a pretty weak Australian side afterwards, whereas 2005 was one of the 2, if maybe 3 greatest Australian sides ever. And all right, it was on the brow of a hill. I wouldn't say it had come down the hill because it was only 18 months later that it hammered England 5-0 in Australia. But I'd say it was on the brow of the hill, it wasn't still climbing. And England under Michael Vaughan had climbed, beating South Africa away and winning against India at home. And they beat Australia in a series that you'd never forget, and they beat them, you know, fair and square by playing wonderful cricket. And that was when Andrew Flintoff, you mentioned Freddie, that was the summer really that Andrew Flintoff showed himself to be an all-rounder. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, Mark, can I just congratulate you on Chance to Shine? I've got 2 daughters in their 20s who both come and watch cricket, T20, 100, and Test match. And it wouldn't be without Chance to Shine without any interest whatsoever.
Hey.
So thank you for that. Number 2 question is, where do you see the 100 going? Because I think there's a T20, 100, it's quite a controversial subject. I like all cricket. I love Test. I'll be at 5 days at Lords. I think it's fantastic. I also love the 100. I love T20. But where do you see that? Where do you see that going in the UK?
Well, I like you. I'm a fan of all forms of the game. I mean, I don't believe that the format is of any consequence to cricket at all. We grew up, all of us, I'm sure, playing in the schoolyard, and if you could grab 10 minutes and face 2 balls and touch the ball once and not even bowl, you'd have been thrilled to be part of the game. So I don't think that the shortness, the 100-ball format, is a problem in itself. You may not choose to like it because you're steeped in Test match cricket or the 4-day game or the 3-day game. Actually, a lot of people, I think, forget the excitement of the 3-day game. Where do I see the 100 going? I think it'll have a slow burn for the next 3 years, and then it'll begin to rise and become quite big here. The interest is enormous amongst younger people. All the data shows that the audiences are clearly younger than in other formats of the game. And though there's obviously a strong argument about the fact that it's cannibalised the T20 Blast, your question is specifically about the 100. And so on that subject, I think the 100 will continue in quite a positive way. I imagine a good year coming. There's a lot of excitement about the investment into it from a lot of outside people who want to be involved in a privatised franchise league. And I suspect that down the track, if you go to the next television rights cycle, it may command pretty good rights. Now, the big issue will be whether the ECB wants to sell those rights separately to maximise their potential, or whether they bundle them with all the other rights to English cricket, in which case they probably won't maximise the potential of the 100 alone. But I'm quite positive about its future.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say, for Test cricket, do you think more international sides need more characters in their teams to make it much more crowd pleasing. So if you look at the Harry Brooks and
Yeah.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, no, I'm crossing the divide, haven't you noticed? The question is, what about more characters in international teams? Have we lost the characters that excite the audience? You know, every era is different. I wonder, I watch some of the cricket from the 30s and think how dull it looked. Nobody seemed very happy to be playing. Well, I suppose they were just chasing Bradman shots all around the ground all the time. I mean, I think you're right. I think Harry Brook and Ben Duckett and Ben Stokes and people, Jeremy Smith, they're pretty extraordinary entertainers. Once you put people behind a helmet when they bat, you're not going to see them animated in the way that you might have seen Brian Close in his face when he was avoiding those Michael Holding bouncers, or when Ian Botham was bareheaded, hooking Dennis Lilly off his nose. Really, I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, a lot of the characters, of course, in sport in the old days were driven by the fact that they liked a beer after play, and you know, it was a party time all the time, and that's the difference now. There's much more discipline. People are much fitter. There's much more adherence to moral principles, I think, perhaps, than there was. It's just a different party. I don't think we can prescribe. I think that the game has always moved in ebbs and flows, and I think it's fitted its time, and I think it'll do that ongoing.
Thank you. The bar is open. Please stay.
Question here? One more.
One more question. Last one. Yes, that's a splendid place. What club's that?
That's the Honourable Artillery.
On the HAC.
Chris Huxtable. Just talking about the 100, you said you see it growing here. Do you see it remaining an English?
Yeah,
Or do you see it?
I see it remaining English if it stays as the 100. I think it would need to go to a T20 tournament. The question was, will the 100 stay in this country, or will it travel? I think it'll stay in England while it's 100 balls. Yeah, I don't think anybody else is interested in changing from the T20 format. So yes, I think it'll stay. Of course, one of the reasons given for the 100 at the time, whether smoke and mirrors or not, was that it would become a property that English cricket could scale up around the world. And that is absolutely not as it's proved to be. So I think we will play that. My hunch is we'll play the 100 for the next few seasons until that television rights cycle changes, and then there might be a move to make it a 20 over tournament. The thing is, it's the television companies that wanted a 2.5-hour window. It was BBC and Sky that were so keen on the idea of a 100-ball tournament. But you know, the IPL continues to. The IPL is the second richest sports tournament in the world. So the NFL in America is an $11.4 billion tournament right now. The IPL is a $6.2 billion tournament. The Premier League is a $4.6 billion tournament. They're the top three values to the sporting tournaments in the world right now. It's a staggering thing that the IPL has continued to roar in a way that even the really successful Indian businessmen couldn't have imagined. And if the 100 could evolve in any small percentage of that, it would be tremendous. I mean, it's all about the people in the ground, isn't it? And it's, how many people want to watch, how many people come live, and how many people turn on the TV. So we should see.
No, thank you.